Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is a continuation of the top 32 notes I own from the top 100. Now, I've already said it's pretty much impossible to get all 100. Some of the notes are unique, some of the notes are only in museums. Why they did it that way, I don't know, because you cannot check off all the lists, all the notes on the list. But it is fun to see how many you can check off. Some of them are ridiculously expensive, some of them are very attainable. This list includes one of the most attainable notes as well, and you're going to see that one in a little bit. Somebody should go through and make a top 100 list of notes you actually can get. Anyway, let's kick this off. We are in part 2 of the top 32. I did numbers 32 through 21 last week. Today we're going to do numbers 20 through 11. So let's get started. Number 20. This is an 1886 $1 silver certificate. This is the Martha Washington note. Martha Washington was the first woman ever put on our currency, first named woman. We've had all kinds of allegories of women, but this one is the first real woman who actually made it on our currency. And yeah, we're probably about due to put another one on there, aren't we? I mean, come on, this was 1886. We're what, 140 years past that now? Anyway, the Martha Washington note, this particular one is number 50 on the list, and this one here is the first version that has all the green on the back, not the later version where they separated some of the green and showed a little bit more white. That was to make it a little harder to counterfeit the notes. This particular note, there are between 3,000 and 5,000 of these still around, and like I said, it's number 20 on my list and number 50 overall on the top 100. Number 19. This one's a biggie. This is the $10 1923 legal tender note, otherwise known as the poker chip. It is called the poker chip because of these circles around the 10 here. Those do look like old-time poker chips. And the thing is the green circle, green is usually 25, so it's weird to see the 10 in the poker chip instead of 25 when it's green like that. Anyway, this features Andrew Jackson on a $10 note, which is kind of odd. You get the beautiful red ink with the $10 Roman numeral and the red seal. Large serial numbers here. The poker chip. This one is number 19 on my list. Out of the top 100, it's number 46. And there are between 800 and 1,200 of these that are still left. So yeah, it's pretty rare as far as notes that are attainable go. That is number 19. Number 18. We have the Ace. This is from the first charter period of national banknotes. Now, national banknotes, there was this thing called obsolete banknotes, or obsolete banks. Obsolete banknotes is what they're called now. What would happen is, prior to the government printing notes, individual banks would print their own money. The thing is, you didn't know if those banks were still in existence or not when you got one of their notes. And if the bank was out of business, you had a worthless note. Because people were unsure of what banks were what, the further away you got from the bank, the less the note had for value. So the government sent out people to actually check on the banks and find out if they were soluble or not. And if they were given a charter number, and they could then put money on deposit with the government and have money printed with their bank on it. So it was national currency, could be spent anywhere, and because there was a charter number involved, you knew that the money was still good. You can see this one here, series of 1875. The original versions were 1862 to 1865, somewhere around there, and the charters were good for up to 20 years. So the original series was 1862 to 1865 or so, and those didn't even put the charter number on the notes. It wasn't until the series of 1875 that you saw the actual charter numbers appear. Checking out the back, I know it's not in the greatest of condition, but I have it, and that's the important thing. And this is the landing of the Pilgrims on Plymouth Rock. That's what's on the back there. This side, they have the eagle for the U.S., and then this side varied depending on where the note was. It would feature whatever state or territory's logo right over here. So this one, the ace is number 18 on my list. It's number 45 overall on the top 100, and there are between 5,000 and 7,000 of these. Number 17. This is the Fujio note. It's continental currency. That means that you can see the date, February 17th, 1776. The Continental Congress backed this money. The Continental Congress trying to raise money for the war, the Revolutionary War. That is where this came from. And one of the oddball things of this, it's very difficult to see on this particular note, but right here it does say the word currency, and it's spelt wrong. It's spelt C-E-Y at the end instead of C-Y. Anyway, this particular note is one of the top 100. It is number 43. There are between 2,000 and 3,000 of these that are still out there. It's very interesting with the 13 rings, one ring for each colony, and you can even make out the colony names in those rings. Just pretty cool overall. Like I said, this particular note, number 17 on my list, number 43 of the top 100, and 2,000 to 3,000 of those still out there. Next up, number 16. This is the $1 1869 rainbow. Features George Washington. The 1869 has the bluish ink that fades into green. You get the red as well as the black. You get green on the back like this. Of course, you get the white of the paper coming through there. Truly is a rainbow note. You'll notice the serial number has a star. That was part of the design. It's not a replacement note. It's just something to put on the end to show that the serial number is ending. They did not use star notes as replacement notes at this particular time. The $1 rainbow, number 16 on my list, it's number 41 overall out of the top 100, and there are between 2,000 and 3,000 of these still floating around as well. So that one is number 16. Number 15. One of the newer additions to my collection. This is a $5 Brownback. This is another national currency, and it happens to be from the second charter period. Second charter period started 1882. So any new charters that were issued or any renewed charters that were issued from 1882 to 1902, that was the second charter period. It's called the Brownback because of the brown ink that's used, and I'm always a huge fan of the prominent charter number on the back in the green ink like that. It's kind of a muddy back. I mean, it is a brown back. That's exactly what it's called, but brown and green just don't quite... They do clash here, which makes the numbers and the design really cool to me. And the way that they put the words on there, they kind of smush the words in just to get them in there. Makes it a little difficult to read, but it's definitely an interesting pattern, the way that they put the words. And then on the bottom, they did it this way. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a whole lot of interesting little factors in this note on the back. On the front, you've got President Garfield, and you can see the charter numbers here. Charter numbers also incorporated in the borders as well. 1882 Brownback. The thing with these notes is the larger the city or the larger the bank, the less it's worth. The further west you go and the smaller the city, the more these tend to be worth. So if you were to get one from New York City, probably not going to be worth a lot. But if you were to get one from Hawaii, yeah, that's going to be worth a ton of money. Anyway, the Brownback, number 15 on my list. It's number 33 overall out of the top 100, and there are between 7,000 and 10,000 of these available. Number 14. This is the $5 legal tender from 1862. You can see the 1862 right here. This one isn't in the greatest of condition, but when you consider this is the first note that the government produced, I don't care. I just wanted to have it. Now, this series also includes the 1 and the 2, but the first note printed would have been the 5 because we had $1 coins, $1 silver, silver dollars. Those were being spent regularly. So having larger denominations like the 5 was a little more necessary. They started with the 5. They have a few other denominations as well. Spinner is who was one of the people instrumental, and that's his signature on there, at least would have been if there wasn't a chunk missing out of this bill. Take a look at the back of this one. The front of the note is very similar to the 1861 demand notes, which were, I don't want to say that they were checks, but they were, will be paid on demand, where this was designed to be circulated currency. The back is where you see a huge difference in those two notes. The $5 legal tender, number 14 on my list. This is number 32 out of the top 100, and there are between 3,000 and 5,000 of these that are still available. Number 13 from that same series. This is the $1 legal tender. If you collect $1 bills, this is the first one, the very first $1 bill, 1862 legal tender. Features Salmon P. Chase. He was a Supreme Court justice, among other things. This is one of the cool notes where you have this interesting design here. Always fascinated by this. You can see this is a $1 bill, and they've got a 1 here, and it's highlighted, but there's also a 2, which is highlighted on the $2 bill, but there's also a 3, and we never made a $3 bill. The $1 1862 legal tender, like I said, the first $1 note ever produced. Very cool note. You can check out how tight these spirals are on the back. I got a video showing a counterfeit and what happens when you try to counterfeit those spirals, and I explain a little bit more why they ended up changing the pattern. Anyway, this particular one, the $1 legal tender, is number 13 on my list. It's number 31 overall on the top 100, and there are between 4,000 and 6,000 of these still left. Number 12. Number 12 is a 1923 $5 bill. This one is the porthole note. The porthole note features Abraham Lincoln, and with his bust looking through this perfect circle, looks like a porthole, like he's looking out a window of a ship. The porthole note took me a while to actually get one of these because I was waiting for a cool story, and once people said it looked like they were looking down a gun sight at Lincoln, who was assassinated, I then understood how important this particular note was. You get the blue numeral right there, which is just really cool, especially the cleaner the note you get, that really pops. The blue seal over there, the large numbers. This particular note is number 12 on my list. It's number 30 overall on the top 100, and there's between 2,500 and 4,000 of these available. I mean, you think about a number like that, that's less than 100 per state. That's how rare that is. There just aren't that many. All right, that one is number 12. And finally, this week, the most affordable note out of the top 100. There are even 2 versions of it, so you can double your fun. This is the $100 CSA, Confederate States of America, $100 note from 1862, and there are 2 versions of it. The 2 different versions, if you look, one is very crisp, and one is kind of washed out. And that is actually part of the key differences, because if you look here, this is the locomotive note, or it's also known as the milkmaid note. But the way to tell them apart definitively is right here. On this particular version, you can see that the steam is going straight up from the locomotive. And on the other version of this note, the steam is called diffused because it just kind of washes out. That's the way these 2 were made. And if I remember, these even have 2 different numbers, 40 and 41, if I remember right. Anyway, these two are, you can find these for like $40. They are really cheap. This note is number 27 out of the top 100, and it's number 11 on my list. The book just says that there are many available. It doesn't list a specific number. There were counterfeits of these made, so if you are going to pick one up, check the signatures. Make sure that the signatures are hand signed. Make sure the numbers, the serial numbers, are hand signed. You can see these here are hand signed. You can see the signatures here are hand signed. You want to look to see if there's subtle differences in the signatures, showing that they were done by two different people, probably using two different pens. And you're looking for that aged look on the ink, not the flat black that you see here, but the aged look here. That one is number 11. Like I said, number 27 overall on the top 100. All right, stay tuned for next week when we round out the final top 10. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.